So I'm all for anything that will improve the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs for all parties involved. And when I say all parties, I mean the people that work there so that they can have safe, dignified, respectful working conditions, as well as the people that they're supposed to be serving in the military community. Because, I've worked in healthcare for most of my adult life, as you may or may not know, if you follow me closely at all. And I know that you can't have a healthcare setting of any kinds, mental health care, physical health care, any healthcare at all, if it's not healthy and respectful and dignified and safe for the people working in that environment, and to provide healthy, safe, dignified, respectful care for the people coming into that environment to be worked with, whether that be a virtual environment or that be a physical in-person environment or a hybrid approach, which is both basically. And I know from working at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, that was not the reality of it at all for many people working there. Okay. I was one of them. And I know this organization doesn't like to hold people accountable, and they're well insulated from any justice or from accountability whatsoever. And they also hide behind their lawyers, the Office of General Counsel, OGC, which is the legal arm of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. And they basically, despite whatever little propaganda they shove out the VA, go after people, go after whistleblowing employees, defame their character. That was my experience. They enable this behavior when the managers of the VA, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, decide to defame a whistleblowing employee. The Office General Counsel, in my direct experience, enables that. I was one of those employees they did this to. And I was one of the luckier ones. Some of these employees that blow the whistle have their, it's like their lives are blown up in many cases. I've read many instances where people's credentials are being attacked all of a sudden because they reported misconduct or some issue at the VA, and the VA managers are coming after them now to discredit them, to defame them, to destroy their reputations, to destroy their careers, not just at the VA, but anywhere. And my experience was that their lawyers will enable this behavior. That was my direct experience. And the systems, the powers that be, like the Merit System Protection Board, especially the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and the useless Office of the Special Counsel, in my opinion, enable this behavior. It's just enabled, and they kind of look the other direction. I do think it's because that they are very busy and they've got so many complaints. And I think there's so much just burnout probably of these well-paid government paper pushers that they just can't seem to care. The Office of Inspector General, my first time dealing with them was in the last few weeks when I reported some legal violations that I saw in my own facility. And, while they wrote a meaningful letter, which I covered in a different video / podcast, I found that when I thought back about it after I filmed the video / podcast, part of the complaint that I filed wasn't even formally fully addressed by the Office Inspector General of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. And I think honestly, if I'm being really fair here, it's because they really are flooded with too many complaints, and they've just got to really prioritize, which complaint's going to come first. And they got to prioritize. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is corrupt to its core, and it has an evil streak. It doesn't treat its employees who are telling the truth and providing that excellent patient care with the dignity and the respect that they deserve more often than not. And many military veterans are not being given the assistance that they need. And I believe this because I've been one of them, and I've dealt with this in the years past. And so there's just a lot to that. So anyways, I don't want to be all one-sided. The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs isn't all bad, right? You probably wonder, how can I say that, one of the things I just said? And the reason I say that is because there's exceptionally excellent people that do work for the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Some of them are military veterans or community members, meaning caregivers, or maybe their spouses or children or something of military veterans, and are quite invested and do care a lot about military veterans and their outcome. Unfortunately, there's not enough people like that running the VA, and that's really where the problems come in. Also, Congress historically has enabled bad behavior at the VA. And I believe that this kind of continues onward through the civil service system, which is nothing but a problem.